Hi, we're on the set with Jose. Welcome, Jose. Thank you so much for coming.
Hey, well, it's a really great pleasure to be here, Alan, to say the very least.
Yeah, it's great. So we were talking earlier today, and from an early age, you had experiences at 7 when you went to the top of a pyramid in Mexico. That kind of led you onto this path. Why don't you talk a little bit about
Actually, it was when I was 14. When I was 7, I got put on the path of being an artist. When I was 14, my father took me back down to Mexico where I'd lived as a youngster, and all I wanted to do was go to the pyramids. I'd seen some books in his library, and we got down to Mexico City. We drove from Minnesota to Mexico. This was back in 1953 in the summer, and we got out to the pyramids at Teotihuacan, place where the gods touch the earth. That's the big, big, big ancient pyramid city, and they're the large pyramid. They're the Pyramid of the Sun, which is as large as the Great Pyramid at Giza on the base, not as tall. Steps go up, but I ran up those steps. I said, hey, I got to get up there. And I got up to the top there before my brother and my father and my uncle. And I looked down and I saw, wow, this is really something. I thought of Mexico City and I thought of where this was. And I said, that's two different worlds. They're happy about Sears and Roebuck there, but this is something else. And as I'm sitting there looking at that, having those thoughts, like I'm having a big white light type of experience, kind of a recollection of purpose, of destiny. And I knew at that point that my mission, my destiny in this life was to bring back the cosmic knowledge that helped build that city and bring it back into the modern world, because my hunch was that the people in the modern world were going to be needing that cosmic knowledge. And that was my purpose.
And then this you knew at 14 was clear to you? 14.
Totally clear. I got back to my hometown in Minnesota. I had a job at the public library, filing books, and there it was between Ouspensky and something else. Sylvanus Griswold Morley's Civilization of the Ancient Maya. And I looked at that and I said, that's the one. It had a chapter on the calendar and astronomy and mathematics. I learned the mathematical system. I started studying the calendar, and I knew that was the path for me.
And then to complete kind of a cycle, I mean, after you were involved in the harmonic convergence, after you were involved in Earth Day, I mean, really extraordinary events of our time. You went back there 49 years later with elders. Why don't you tell that story, and then we'll go into what kind of information you want you to impart.
Yeah, I followed this path and all those things, like the harmonic convergence. That was all part of the prophecy. And it turns out last year, 2002, around March 3rd or so, I was down in Mexico. I thought I was going to be planning a ceremony for people in my group in the peace movement I'm leading. And instead it turned out that a group of elders, the guardians of the earth, group of 9 indigenous elders, shamans from different tribes in Mexico, had gotten word that they were supposed to honor me. And there I was marching up and down Teotihuacan. I got to the Pyramid of the Sun.
The same one you were 49 years before.
49 years before, same place. They took me up to the top there, and a great, great ceremony, and they gave me a beautiful, beautiful sacred staff like I'd never seen before, obsidian and onyx and a lot of beautiful sculpted stuff on it, and that was given to me. They said that in their teachings and their prophecies, they knew that in this end time that there would be someone who would come along who would have a new knowledge based on the old knowledge, but a new knowledge, cosmic knowledge, that would renew the tradition, that would renew the people of the earth, and that person was me, and they honored me as being what they called the closer of the cycle, because we're talking about the cycle that ends in 2012. That was a very mind-blowing experience, Alan, life-changing experience for me too, because I sat up in that pyramid and I said, wow, 49 years ago I had this vision, and here I am, and these elders are honoring me for it, and I held my vision. So it's very, very powerful. It's very great to be alive and to have this mission and to have this sense of purpose for the people of the earth.
Okay, well, just what are you supposed to tell people? Here's a venue for it. Go boy.
Yeah, hey man. When we say closer of the cycle, okay, when we say 2012, we're talking about the knowledge of the Mayan calendar, as it's called, though that's a really, really one-dimensional word for a system that is so rich in mathematics, prophecy, and understanding of our place in the cosmos. The Mayan word for human being, winklil, means cosmic vibratory root. We're supposed to be cosmic vibratory roots, but we're stunted, and we're stunted from realizing that, because the truth is that we are living in the incorrect time. The Mayans were the masters of time. They had 17 or 19 calendars that they used simultaneously. That's because they knew time is the factor of synchronization. Time's what synchronizes us. The harmonic convergence worked. Everybody got synchronized that morning. It was a synchronization event. So the point of it is that we're at the end of the cycle. Everyone knows, something's going on. This is the end time. Is it going to be an apocalypse? What's going to happen? The Mayans say that December 21st, 2012, that's when the cycle closes. What cycle? Okay. The 5,125-year cycle of history, 26,000-year cycle of the sun going around, the earth going around the ecliptic, and an even larger cycle, 104,000-year cycle. All these cycles are coming to an end. We are living in a really, really powerful, momentous event in time at this moment. So the closure of the cycle, it means that the closure of the cycle, that said, just keep doing what you're doing, follow the red road. The red road is the road, the good road, the path of truth to 2012. And announce to people the time, that we have to change the time. We live in a time of war and in a time of chaos. The time of war and chaos is locked up in the simple calendar we use every day. A calendar is a programming device. We don't understand that. And if we're going to make it to 2012 in peace and harmony with justice for all, we have to change the time. It's a big test for us humans to be able to do that. And the means of changing is to change the calendar. We have to go from the irregular Gregorian calendar. A calendar is a standard of measure. If you have a standard of measure with units that don't correspond, the weeks and the months don't correspond, the months are uneven, it drives you crazy, actually. You couldn't, if you built a house with a standard of measure like that, it would be a very crooked house. And in many ways, the house that we live in the world today is a crooked house.
How did we come to go from a Mayan calendar to this irregular, disharmonious calendar?
This, you have to look at this. The Mayans were in the New World, and the Old World was dominated by the Babylonian civilization and the Babylonian concepts of time, which are based on 12. The Mayan concept is based on 13. Before history, most people used a 13-month calendar. The Mayan prophecy that I decoded, the prophecy of Pakal Votan, who was buried in the tomb at Palenque, says that the means of changing the time is to go from the Gregorian 12-month calendar to go to the perfect harmonic perpetual 13-month 28-day calendar. The Mayans used that calendar among other calendars. The Aztecs used that calendar. The Druids used that calendar. The Incas of South America used that calendar. It's the universal calendar. And the point is, to make it to 2012 in peace and harmony, the message is we have to change the time. You change the time by changing the calendar. When you change the calendar, you change the program. Like the Gregorian calendar program is full of static and chaos, confusion, injustice, oppression, all of that stuff, inequality. And if we change that, we go to a calendar that is perfectly harmonic, perfectly perpetual. Every month is 28 days. Every month has 4 perfect weeks. Every month starts on Sunday and ends on Saturday. Every year starts on Sunday and ends on Saturday. Then we reintroduce harmony as the fundamental program of our life. And the point is that we are now up against the final moment. We are in the final moment. We're entering a point where we are going to be going into the final window when we can make this shift. And this window occurs between November 8th this year and July 26th,
2003.
2004. Yeah,
yes,
from
2003 to 2004.
Correct, to 2004. Correct. And so
if somebody's watching this show after that date, either
yeah,
it's been done.
Yeah, well, you gotta get with it now. Get it out now.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then July 26, 2004. That's the moment of what we call the big calendar change. That's when we're going to be beginning this shift in human consciousness, going from irregular mechanistic time to harmonic, perpetual, universal, cosmic time, back to natural time, back to the time of the cycles of the universe. Right now, the human species is the only species that's out of joint. We're totally out of order. We're out of order because we're following a mechanistic time combined with, which is the clock, combined with the irregular time of the calendar, which creates a very crazy-making, accelerating process. Everyone is experiencing acceleration of time. Everyone is experiencing acceleration of consciousness.
Was there any disharmony in the Mayan or the other civilizations that use that? I mean, it seems like there's been disharmony.
There's been disharmony, and there are different reasons for that, that there have been introduced levels of disharmony. But in a fundamental way, when we look at the civilizations that use this, that were following this Mayan timing standard, that there's a very, very much higher level of harmony that we're dealing with. And we're also dealing with a knowledge base that is very, very extensive and expansive. The Mayans would consider our concepts of time really primitive.
But like in the people who supposedly were following this, like Atlantis and Lemuria, I mean, they had other problems, right? Were they following the Mayan calendar in that way, or were they on the Gregorian calendar?
I think that that when you talk about those places, we're also talking, about we're introducing larger issues here besides the calendar. Right now, we'd have to say that the program of the calendar, the Gregorian calendar, is a program that is basically inherited from the Roman times, which is inherited from the Babylonian times. Then you have to say, well, that those programs that they were following, where did those come from? And then these were the faulty Atlantean programs and so on that then got resurfaced in this present cycle. This last cycle of time, this 5,125-year cycle of time from the cosmic galactic Mayan point of view, this is the time of the final testing, the final purging of the previous Atlantises, the previous lost worlds, the previous planets that didn't make it. That all that karma, all of those programs, all those faulty programs, are now playing out their last segues here on Earth right now, and they have been playing out because they have been locked into this program, this Gregorian calendar program, and the time. So that's what creates the time. It's created a time like that to have all these programs play out. Everything that we're seeing happening on the planet today is like the final stages of this, and it's a big cosmic drama. And so the point of the Mayan time, which isn't just like pure Mayan, because we're talking about, it's like saying Thomas Edison discovered electricity. Does that mean electricity is American? Okay, so like this Mayan.
We'd like to think so here in America.
Some people would. They like to put flags on the electrical wires. Okay,
right.
Yeah, but so the Mayan time is actually cosmic time. They knew the actual nature of the time of the cosmos, of the galaxy, and so we're at this point here where we're finishing this time of test, this time of trials, like the human beings have been having their final exam, and they're playing out all these
cramming.
Yeah, we got to do some cramming right now. Read my books and you can cram. Okay,
right.
Read Time in the Technosphere and you can cram. The point is that now we're at this final testing point, and we got to till 2012. From 2004 till 2012 is 8 years, and so we have to begin to make the shift, because when we change the program, then we're being given the opportunity to change the program. It's like God is saying, okay, you have this one last chance to change your program, because that's the root of the problem. The reason why you haven't had peace yet is because you haven't understood you have to change the fundamental program. You're locked into a program of time that keeps your minds in a state of disharmony, that keeps you jagged, that keeps you accelerated, that keeps you in stress.
Would you say that, I mean, I know certain spiritual paths talk about, a state of timelessness.
Yes.
Okay, so how does that, is that a more expansive view of it, or is this for like...
Yeah, well, the timelessness is at the root of cosmic time.
Right. Okay. Why don't you talk a little bit about that? Because I think it's interesting, because to me, I mean,
every mystic, every great mystic, at the root of, whether it's, Ramakrishna, whether it's Rumi, whether it's St. Francis, what Huxley called the perennial philosophy, at the root of all that is an experience of timelessness. Timelessness is like what I call vertical time.
Yeah, okay? Beyond religion.
Yeah, beyond all that, because it introduces a state of mind and being that allows your soul, allows your consciousness to rise and to expand and to transcend the third dimensional physical. Okay, it allows you to go into the fourth dimensional time space. And when you look at what we're talking about, a cosmic timing standard like the 13-moon 28-day calendar, when we say perpetual, that means once you introduce living on that, after a certain point, that perpetual time gets you to timelessness. Okay, because there's no distinction. Okay, history is a function of irregular timing standards. Okay, when you get to a point where you're on a regular timing standard,
is it like which came first, the chicken or the egg? I mean, didn't disharmony lead us to pick the wrong calendar, and then the wrong calendar led to more disharmony, and then the cycle of which came first?
It's an interesting point, because there's free will and everything is preordained.
Yeah, I know. How do you deal with that? How do you walk the razor's edge of those two? Go ahead. You got about. Explain how you would walk the razor's edge between those two.
Yeah. So, but actually, both are true. I was reading a quote from John Lennon. John Lennon said, I know everything is free, but it's preordained too. He was on to that, and that's part of the paradox. The dualistic mind can't deal with the paradox. If you're going to go into that paradox, is this free will, is this preordained? You have to develop a mind that transcends the dualism of it, and can actually accept that both of those are true.
So what you're saying about the calendar is like, at this time, in this state we're in, that is like an important step. Because ultimately we want to be in the timelessness, because it doesn't matter, who get, with all due respect to all this stuff. I mean, we don't care if it's the 31st day, the 28th day, if we're in that state of timelessness.
But the thing is that we have conditioned ourselves so long by irregular and mechanistic timing standards that affects our mind. It's like you've been wearing shoes that are too small. They're cramping your feet. Well, you got to get out of them and put something else that helps make them strong and better. Maybe in the end you get rid of the shoes altogether.
Right.
Okay. It's kind of like that. So we have to make we've become so almost immune to harmony.
We don't know what it feels like.
Yeah, we don't know what it feels like. So we have to get used to harmony again. That's the whole point of this calendar.
So you're saying this calendar change is a big tool to reinvigorate the experience of harmony for people, that is an impediment.
Absolutely.
Not that people haven't broken through that impediment throughout history, the one or two, but for a whole species.
But for the whole species has never been unified in a harmonic standard. And the opportunity exists today to become unified in a harmonic standard and to experience harmonic unity, harmonic synchronization. And this is what we want. That's what everybody wants. Everybody wants, you know, like what you were saying at the beginning of the show and your meditation. Everyone wants to live that joyous, blissful life every day. It doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what boundaries there exist. Borders will disappear when we live in harmony. Governments will disappear when we live in harmony.
Right, those illusions.
Yeah, those are all illusions that keep us cramped, and they're all fixed and rooted in the calendar. Everything,
so you would say, see, it's just like, again, it's like the chicken and the egg. So, but you really think that that our disharmony is so much caused by that calendar? Well, let's think about that, and we'll show the other video, which is an interesting video because it's called "How Long." You know, how long are we going to be like this? And it's perfect. And again, this is by Twin Flame, Rebecca Hilton, and Wen Boley. It's from their CD, Peaceful Warrior. Okay, so it's How Long. We're back on the set with Jose. So there was a section in your book where you talked about the World Trade Center. Yeah, why don't you start from there?
Yeah, you know, in Time in the Technosphere, I wrote that book right after the Twin Towers, you know. I thought about that, and then I realized what was going on, because I realized that this had a lot to do with 2012. And in Time of the Technosphere, I described the events of 9/11 as being the inevitable event. The inevitable event meaning that all the different forces of history, all the different that had been unresolved, all the different karmic forces, all the different programs that were locked up in the calendar that had, see, when we talk about this calendar, we have the clock. We're talking about the creation of an artificial timing frequency, and the human beings are operating by this artificial timing frequency. And because of that, they have extruded an artificial environment called the technosphere. Now, the technosphere lives at the expense of the biosphere. The biosphere is the natural environment of the living environment of the Earth. It's called the biosphere. So the technosphere is like this large cancer, this large parasite that lives at the expense of the biosphere. There's a certain point at which the biosphere can no longer sustain the technosphere.
Now, the technosphere isn't just technology, it's the way technology is used and our consciousness about technology.
Exactly. It's the whole web of what we might today call globalization, that state of consciousness of globalization, the consumerism, the whole of it. Okay, the technosphere includes, like, it's the commodities, it's the urban centers, it's the energy, it's the communications,
the separation,
it's the transport. Yeah, all of that keeps everything
right.
going and creates further separation, further alienation of the human being from nature. All of that is the technosphere. The biosphere is the natural environment. At a certain point, there's a point at which the biosphere can no longer sustain the technosphere, and so that begins to collapse. The Twin Towers, the World Trade Center, was described in 1985 by scientists who study and define the biosphere as the hub of the technosphere. So when those towers went down, it doesn't matter whether it was actually terrorists or who did it, how it happened, why it happened. It happened. It happened. It inevitably happened. It was the nerve center, the pineal gland of the technosphere was taken out.
And the technosphere has to evolve if the planet's going to survive.
Well,
it has to evolve back into harmony.
It has to evolve back. And so that point there, that puncture, that was a big puncturing of the technosphere. So now there's a lot of retrograde, regressive action to try to maintain it, but it's not going to hold because the biosphere is in danger, the global warming, everything else. So what you're seeing is like the technosphere is slowly going to be coming down. It's not pretty, but it's coming down because it's not the truth. It's not natural. It's not the truth. It exists at the expense of the biosphere. It exists at the expense of the Amazonian rainforest. It exists at the expense of the different species and everything. Right. So It's inevitable. It's coming down. That's why it's called, this is why this is called the end time. And it's coming down because we're headed to 2012. So the point is that, okay, we have to just say, hey, it's coming down. You know, no matter how many flags you fly, it's still coming down. So we're saying, instead of flying flags, let's see what else we can do. Let's see if we can do something about it. And the Mayan prophecies say, yes, you can do something about it. Just change your timing frequency, get back with the big universal evolutionary program. You just took a big detour from evolutionary mainstream. You caused yourself a lot of suffering, and some people might be well off from this, but a lot of other people are suffering more and more every day, and you're playing with very dangerous toys to protect a crumbling facade. That's all that's happening. The whole facade of civilization is just coming down. We want to defend it with bombs and wars and so on, but that's not all that's going to do is further the process of it coming down. It's all inevitable. So the point is, we have the opportunity. How many people in the world are for peace? And how many people in the world really are for war? If everyone in the world who exists in the world is for peace could understand this point that we can all have peace if we unify and change the time and say, that's it. We're going into a new time. We're going from a time of war to a time of peace. We're going from a time of fear to a time of love. We're going from a time of chaos to a time of harmony. We're going to solve our problems ourselves, and we're going to enter a new time that is going to reorganize our mind, that's going to reorganize how we function in the world, that's going to reorganize our priorities. Rather than building more things, we want to repair the damage, rather than continuing to exploit and consume all the resources. We want to stop and begin to explore our mind. The human species at this point consumes more resources than it can replace and creates more waste than it can get rid of. That
sounds like a perfect.
Yeah, you're not going to get very far with that.
That's a beautiful balance.
Yeah,
well, that's an equation everyone wants.
Yeah, so you're going to run out pretty fast that way, and you're going to die in your own toxic waste on top of it. So the point is,
wow, there's a dream come true.
The point is, we can get out of that. We can get out of that, and we can be heroic. We can be heroic and say, we can stop this. Let's stop this. Let's.
And you say one of the first dominoes that we can do to stop this is to change the way we view calendar time.
Time, yes, exactly. Because the calendar is the macro programming device of a culture, of a society, of a people. In other words, when we say that, everyone in this culture, from the American culture, for instance, they're programmed by that. Okay, July 4th is coming up. Big knee-jerk reactions. December 25th is Christmas.
Do you think if the consciousness doesn't change, again, it's like the chicken and the egg, that it won't be July 4th, it'll be September 3rd where we saved...
It'll change the consciousness.
It'll change the consciousness.
It'll change the consciousness. I talk to people on airplanes, I talk to people everywhere who never heard about this. And usually they say, we're going to change the calendar, and the first thing they say is, what's going to happen to Christmas? Or
yeah, no, I was a little concerned about all the horoscopes.
Yeah,
If I'm not in Pisces anymore, what's my life about?
This is the time of the big change. It changes us, or we change. We can change, and before we get totally changed in the wrong way. Okay, it says in the Quran. It's not difficult at all for God to change, to remove you and put in other people there. Okay, it's not difficult for us to be erased from our program because we're not getting the lesson, or we can be courageous and say, oh, I think there's a point here. Let's change the program and see what happens. Shift our priorities and begin to make this shift. And I guarantee you that just the very act of getting together to make this change will synchronize and unify so many people that it will stun the governments and stun the corporations and say, hey, there's a new thing happening on the earth. To change the calendar is actually an evolutionary act. and it's an act that furthers the mind. You say, when there's the biosphere and the artificial construct of the technosphere, what comes after that in the evolutionary scheme is the noosphere. That's the mental field, the unified mental field around planet Earth. Teilhard de Chardin wrote about this. The Russian scientist Vladimir Vernadsky wrote about this. Both those guys coined the term, actually, in Paris in 1926. And the noosphere is the next stage of evolution. We've gone as far as we can go on the physical plane. The only place to go is in the mind and in the spirit. We have, and because we've been so materialistic, our mind and spirits have become stunted. We got to expand. The only place to go is the time is to into the spirit and the mind. And that's the other point is we haven't understood time. Time is of the mind. Time is of the spirit. Space is physical. You know, we can see it, we can look at it, we can touch it, we can taste it, we can smell it, we can feel it. But time is of the mind. We haven't explored time. Time is where we're going. Time is where we are. And at the center of time is that timelessness you're talking about. We all want to experience that. We want to have that as the central program of our society. But we're not going to get there until we change the time. So we either change the time or the time changes us. The time is changing us very rapidly right now. And the opportunity now exists to change it.
Is there another avenue into that harmony? Is it, in other words, can something else be changed? As far as you look at it, let's say we keep the same calendar with Christmas and July 4th and all that. No work. No work. No other way. You know, if everyone did 20 minutes
people have tried
and
that.
got bumped off the ground or whatever.
No
way.
Nothing
happens.
We've got all the spiritual teachings in the world exist right now, and we're farther from unity, we're farther from peace than we've ever been.
You would say?
Yeah, I would say. I'd say right now that the situation is so dangerous. You know, that I know. I mean, we've done global peace meditations. We've got, you know, we've tried.
But you don't see it as like all those things are like reaching out to the you know, like the 100th monkey, and we're up to 93, and it doesn't look like anything's happening. But somehow,
you're not. No, we're not there. You got to change the. See, the thing is, you can pull together everybody who's doing good, everybody who's working for peace.
They're all in this room, so it won't take long.
Everybody's working for good, doing good, working for peace. And they're all in their different stream. Pull them all together and say, you want to do one thing that's going to change the way people think, that's going to make the paradigm shift, make this change of calendar. It's the only thing.
So in other words, the prophecies you've been told is that that's the central part.
Period.
Wow.
Okay.
Go, boy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, because it's the time. I'm telling you, we haven't thought about it. The Mayans thought about it a lot. I'm a galactic Mayan. I'm on Earth here to give you this message. That's all. It's just as simple as that. Change your time and you'll save yourself. It'll give you something different to do, just to figure it out. It's going to elevate your consciousness.
Think of all the people making calendars. They'll be busy as hell.
And you're going to change your consciousness. You're going to change your consciousness.
Okay, explain the path of changing the calendar into changing the consciousness.
Yeah. Okay. What's today?
Today?
Yeah, what is today? What day is it today?
It's Friday, June 27th, Earth time.
Okay.
2003.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's one program. What if I say today is the cosmic moon, Dali 1. It's the first day of the cosmic moon. It's the day. It's also Kin 125, it's red galactic serpent, and it's the red planetary moon year. That's going to change your consciousness just to contemplate what that is and say, we're never going to have June again, we're never going to have April again. Okay? That's going to change the way you think. Albert Einstein, before he died, he said, since the advent of the nuclear age, everything has changed but the way people think. And because of that, we drift we are drifting towards catastrophe. If you want to change the way people think on an everyday basis, really change the way they think, change the calendar. It's going to change the way they think. It's going to, because
if all of us understood, like, I mean, could you say that, you know, these are just like constructs and it depends how deep the constructs go? In other words, if you and I were trying to meet somewhere, like we were, you know, I was picking you up at the airport. If you and I both knew that, you know, this plane was coming in on the wizard, the red wizard day, and we all had an agreement about that. I mean, you wouldn't want to show up on the red wizard day, and I was showing up on the white lotus day, right? That would be a long wait. So how do we, you know, come to an agreement? Isn't part of what all these things are is an agreement? You know, that we wear clothes most of the time. It's kind of an agreement. Now, whether it's a right agreement or wrong agreement, we could do that.
You have to understand something, okay?
Probably a lot.
Yeah. This matter of time and this matter of calendars is far deeper, actually, than when we're going to meet, okay, or setting up appointments. That's how we think of it. It's actually, we don't understand that or the time we're living locks us into the third dimension. That's why we have so many efforts at getting spiritual courses or doing this or that to get a little peek into the fourth dimension. But if you know, listen, let me just finish this. That when we're talking about the harmonic standard of the 13-moon 28-day calendar, that is locked into a fourth dimensional experience of time, which actually has graduated levels and layers of elevation of consciousness that most people right now wouldn't even dream exist. And so I'm just saying that by not taking this opportunity, we are forfeiting the possibility of expanding our consciousness in ways way beyond what even the greatest mystics and dreamers have conceived of. We're talking evolution. It's an evolutionary step. It's not just like saying I'm going to buy a Toyota instead of a Chrysler, okay? It's not like that at all, okay? It's like it's trading in an old paradigm for a new paradigm, and the new paradigm is a paradigm of time and not of space. The new paradigm is a paradigm of spirit and not of matter. And we're talking about a qualitative evolutionary shift in consciousness. And just to come together and synchronize on this point, just as an act of goodwill, as Gandhi said about the calendar reform movement in the 1930s. He totally approved of that calendar reform movement because it brought people together in peace on a matter that transcends all the differences. I was talking in Europe and at one time and sometime in the 90s.
I think we only have 30 seconds, so whatever you want to say in 30 seconds, go get them.
And a Palestinian came to me and said, do you think if we introduced a calendar that we would have a higher point of dialogue? And I said, yeah. And he said, I think you have a point. Let's try it, okay?
That's a good plan.
Yeah.
All right, so we're coming to the end of the show, and obviously an enormous amount was said, and an enormous amount of energy was vibrated out. So, you know, I hope you taped the show, because I think so much was said that really you should sit with and listen to. The book is Time in the Technosphere. If you want any information, Alan, 805-687-2053. Good night. God bless you. We love you. Come again.